Hello, everyone. My name is Ayse Hogan. I'm the visionary of IAUSM, and today we are going to be talking about the power of questions. Some of our moderators will be joining us soon on the panel. The power of questions. We do ask one particular question all the time that is not a good question, and that is the question, why? Why does this always happen to me? Why don't I have enough money? Why, is my life like this? Why do I keep meeting the same kind of people? So our brains and our energy will always create solutions for us. However, we have to make sure that we put the right questions out there, because when we ask the same questions, we will always get the same answers. So there's some great people on our panel right now. I'm going to start with Melinda, who are professionals when it comes to asking questions, experts. Melinda, please do introduce yourself, and I would love to hear your feedback on questions.
Okie dokie. Hi, everybody. And I'm Melinda. Yay. I work as the energy facilitator, and I am a mentor in IAUSM, which I absolutely love. Love the energy. It's an awesome place to be. So with regard to questions, yeah, it's a huge topic. And it's interesting that you started off with the why question, because why is this happening to me? What are all the things that you just said? That's not really a question, actually. Those are not questions. Those are conclusions and judgments with a question mark at the end. So you've already, when you say, why is this happening to me? You've already decided something's wrong. You've already decided this is a bad thing. This is not fixable. I'm in trouble, whatever. This is not an actual generative, open-ended question. It's just going to lead down a path where your mind is going to start ruminating as to, and just playing around with your preset, predetermined conclusions and judgments. So the why questions don't lead anywhere except for down a rabbit hole. And they're not, in my opinion, they're not even questions. So the thing that I learned, like every coach learns when you start training, how to ask questions. We're trained that you are not, an answer maker. You are a person who has to ask your client questions, and that's how they get their aha moment. So this is how you can achieve sustainable empowerment with your clients, if they can choose something from their own awareness. So I was like, as a problem solver, that's kind of, interesting, because as a problem solver, I want to give everybody the answers. And then I realized in training that doesn't actually work, because it doesn't empower people. So I was given these manuals with pages and pages and pages of questions, and I was like, holy smokes, I hit the jackpot here. I thought, this is incredible. I've never even noticed, until you start to really dive into questions, you don't even realize the questions you even have available to ask, which is unbelievable. I just looked at these pages and pages, and I thought, holy cow, I didn't even think about asking questions in this way. So there's something to be said about really diving into looking at different ways to ask questions. And the thing is, in this reality, the question isn't valued, the answer is valued. And the only problem with having the answers is that it's a final stop. It's like, okay, well, the answer to XYZ is this. And then that's it. That's all, folks. Nothing more to see here. It's a total limitation. So when you're willing to keep asking and start to receive this flash of insight that you get when you ask an open-ended generative question, like, and an example of that would be, what am I aware of? What else is possible here? What do I need to know about this? What's right about this I'm not noticing? What are some other options I could take? What else is available here? Those are open-ended questions. So when you start asking like that, it's like following a trail of breadcrumbs to something that's magical that you can't actually conclude is possible. You can't conclude magic and miracles. You can't have a spreadsheet for them. They just show up. They show up out of the blue. They are not something that you can logicize. And you have to be in the act of ask, relax, and then listen. Because if we're yapping too much in our head, you can't hear anything. So we have to choose and be open to the awareness that follows those choices. The fastest way to change really is to ask. So, and that really lets you to get to the heart of a situation right away. But like I said, asking a question not from a freak out position, but from a space of actual genuine wonder. But sometimes when you're panicking, it's kind of hard to do that. So taking a breath, stepping back, and try to expanding your zone, your imagine there's a bubble, like you're in a fishbowl. You push that bubble outside, push it to be bigger and bigger and bigger. And imagine everything on the inside of the bubble is relaxation, everything on the outside is everything else. And what that does is it gives you a little bit more space for you so you can regroup and actually ask a question that's going to lead to something that you can do, which is going to create more awareness. Okay, so you want to get that flash of insight. You want to get those things, the options that are available to you, and then you can make a choice. And interestingly, the ego doesn't want you to ask because consciousness kills the meaning-making, trauma-enhancing storytelling of the mind. And when you ask when you're truly asking questions are the invitation to allow total consciousness to flood you. The ego mind doesn't like that. It's like, no, 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 don't do that. So when you start to live daily with questions instead of judgments and constant conclusions, you start to get that you actually have a choice. You're not just waiting for the universe or something outside of you to rescue you somehow. You're getting a sense that of your role as a creator and how much more control of your life and your living can you have when you're empowered as a creator. Okay, so it's not a choice it's created from fear or lack or limitation. It's where we make choices that get created by your willingness to ask, listen, get that flash of insight, and then ride that awareness wave. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And wow, that's so amazing. I have some comments, but I want to give Dave a chance to say some things. So, Dave, Dr. Dave, please do introduce yourself. And I want to hear from you when it comes to this.
Well, hello. Dr. Dave Hillis here. I am the Akashic Records ambassador for IAUSM. I love this subject. I didn't know what our subject was until I heard it this morning, like everybody else. So I'm super excited. Questions are such a gigantic part of any healing process. And let's do for okay, I have so many things running. Like I need to have 7 conversations happen at the same time. Um, so Melinda, wow, I loved all of that information because that really is a wonderful place for people just to get a sense of how different things can be by just doing something so simple as to look at the questions that you're asking and where you're allowing yourself. So that was beautiful. When it comes to questions for the Akashic Records, which is your soul record, questions are so critical. How you ask them, dependent upon whether you're going to get information or not have information. And the quickest, fastest way to be able to achieve some of those things is we have to make sure that we put ourselves in neutral. And this is kind of exactly what Melinda was talking about is if we put ourselves into neutral and we don't have an investment on the outcome and we come from that place of opening a space so that the universe can begin painting that on our canvas. If we keep that canvas fresh and new and nothing on it and allow the masterpiece to unfold, that's the magic in asking questions from a neutral place. There is such freedom uh, when we begin asking those constructive ways of ourselves and of the universe. I am always making sure that we're reframing, and I think that's a lot of the work that I love that I get to do with clients is helping them reframe what it is that they're putting out to the universe. And exactly when we talked about when you gave the example of why is this happening, that never enters into the realm of giving you the right answer according to you. it's going to give you an answer, but you're probably not going to like it. So if we begin to start asking better questions, that allows us to lean into it and to actually feel the miracle that the universe gave to us in that time. So uh, it's a wonderful thing to be able to give yourself that freedom to be in neutral before you begin your questions to the universe, to your creator. That's what I had to say about that. Back to you, Ayse.
That's amazing. And there's a few things that you guys were talking about here, which I think are also part of this miracle of questions. I like to think of, it is a miracle of questions because it opens up so many possibilities for us. However, the trick, I think, is that place of neutrality, that place of being unattached to outcome. And I think even, and I'm going to use myself as an example here, even in building IAUSM, I mean, at the beginning, what I thought she was going to be, what I felt she was going to be, and what she's turned out to be is very different. And I think the struggle that I had in the last 2 years of building this academy was I felt it needed to be this outcome. It needed to be fit in this container, and I was doing everything I could to make it fit into that container. And when I was willing to go, yeah, that's not working, and I'm now, after even having some discussions with my good friend Melinda here and saying like, she's, be open to all the possibilities. Now, she had given me that piece of insight about something else, but I started using it for IAUSM. And I was like, okay, I am open to you being whatever the heck it is that you're supposed to be. And if you choose not to be anything, I'm just going to walk away from this whole thing. So it was interesting when I let it be and not try to, like that rabbit hole that Melinda was talking about, tried to shove it down this one funnel. How it changed and how it blossomed into something that it is now like germinating into. So it's been very interesting. The very interesting thing of this is that when you can let go, and I think that most people, most of the time say, I want this. This is how I'm going to get there. Why isn't it happening? And because you are so attached to one outcome, you are so attached to the way that you're going to do it, that you have shut the doors to all the other possibilities. So if you could imagine in your mind for a second, just a universe of doors, like, those, sometimes we watch these movies or like supernatural stuff or whatever, paranormal things, and they show you all these doors. So imagine all these doors, right? And you don't know what's behind the doors, right? But they're all open to all the possibilities. But when you decide that this is the only way that it can happen and this is the outcome that it has to be, then all those other doors slam shut. And something that could become miraculous and beautiful and beyond what you had even dreamed it could be is what will open up for you, right? So it's really a fascinating, and it is super miraculous if you let it be that, right? If you allow it to be that, right, Melinda?
Yeah, 100%. I love the way you describe that. It's so beautiful. I love listening to you talk. Yeah, absolutely. And that neutrality piece is key. It's absolutely incredible how magical. And I like basically what you just said, watching you go from, because I was with you from the very moment you started this whole thing, and watching you go from what you just said and how that evolved, I awesome turned into something extraordinary. Exactly. Actually, because you were willing to say, you know what, I'm just going to let it all go if it doesn't work out, and you gave it that space, it became, I think, something even greater than what you thought it could possibly be, right?
Absolutely, yes, yes.
Yeah,
I was actually surprised. I mean, there was so many rules that I had laid down at the beginning, where
yeah,
this is what it needs to be. This is how it has to happen. I was bringing my own triggers into it. Like, so for instance, I'll use another example. As I said, no teachers can market. This is going to be all organic, and that because I got sick of marketing inside of, all of these social media places, the amount of noise and emails and stuff. And I was like, why can't we just let people choose instead of forcing stuff down their throat? So it was my own trigger that was saying no.
Yeah, and the really cool thing right there was when you gave up the conclusion, because it's possible that you had the conclusion, well, no mark, for example, this example, no marketing, blah blah blah, in my community, in this community, because that's a conclusion of what that looks like. And so when you were open to all the possibilities, you're like, well, maybe it can show up in a different way that actually works. And because you were willing to be a question, that's when that all started to open up. Like I said, in this reality, we value conclusions and the right answer. And we look for it, we ask even other people to validate our choices based on, did I get the right answer? But what happens with that energy, it just stops. The answer is not a flow energy, it's a stop energy. And when you're willing to be in the question, you are in that space. Even when you've made an assessment based on what you're sensing, based on some awareness, but then you just act on that one conclusion. I know that there's a lot of metaphysical people that practice in sort of still kind of an older way of doing things. They get an awareness and then they stop it. They don't continue asking questions. So what happens, they get a sense of something like, okay, so universe, show me what would it take for me to get my house, for me to get the car of my dreams. And they get an awareness and then they stop with it. What happens is they're operating within a closed system. So it's you and your mind. There's no more flow coming in from the infinite wisdom of universal intelligence. You're in a loop of assessment, conclusion, and action based on that. So what if instead, like what you did, you keep asking? With every awareness that shows up, every awareness that's revealed, you open up this closed system and allow these infinite energies of universal intelligence to show up, because you keep on co-creating. How? By asking a question. You're not stopping with your first analysis and assessment and cutting yourself off from everything else. You're open to receiving even more as you keep moving forward with whatever you're doing or whoever you're facilitating, whatever energy healing that you're doing. You keep on asking and asking and asking. You don't go, oh, this is it, I got this awareness, poof, that's all there is. That isn't being in the flow, and a conclusion cuts you off from your awareness. Awareness is not a one-time shot. It's a space that you get to be in, and it's accessed with questions. In my opinion, it's the only way you can really access it. And a lot of questions aren't even language. They're energetic. How many energetic questions do we ask? And more questions lead to more choice, which lead to more awareness, and then we have flow, and now we have an open system.
Absolutely, absolutely. Before I comment on what she just said, Dave, is there anything that you wanted to add?
Actually, I do, but first, I actually want to see if Melinda, can you talk more about the energetic questions? I was really, really excited to hear about what you have to say about what those are, and how clients, or how we help ourselves really ask those questions with that definition of energetic questions.
Yeah, well, we're based on energy. So let's say, for example, just as an energetic question, just imagine, for example, let's say a person has a pain in their body. Okay, and what happens is when you start asking your body questions from language. Okay, body, what is this? What are we talking about? What are we doing? What is going on here with you? And you start to tune into the physical body, yours or your clients. What happens is your body understands the language of energy. So all bodies understand the language of energy, and they not only perceive what is going on within their own structure. They can perceive the energy of what's going on in the atmosphere, with bodies around them, and with as many bodies as they can possibly be connected to, based on the consciousness that you're functioning from. So that field of connectivity that the body is connected to is attached to can start to really flow, information can really start to flow in. So energetic questions can be things that are where you just know something and you're functioning from a space of being rather than doing. So it's kind of a little bit tricky to put on because there is no way to pinpoint being. There's no, once you start to try to think about it, you define it and you start to confine it to try to understand it. So a lot of energetic questions we ask ourselves that are not generative, that are not good. Let's say, for example, you look into the mirror. How many times people look in the mirror and there's a litany of judgments and well, how come I have these wrinkles and what is going on here and why am I so fat and blah, 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 blah. And these are not even, it's not even language. It's just an instantaneous, in a nanosecond, you energetically become those not so positive questions. Well, what if we turn that around? And what if when we become, let's say we're sitting in front of a client, a person that we're working as a healer for people who work with, facilitate other bodies, and someone's complaining about something, and you know that they're not really willing at all to really change what they're dealing with. They're not really interested in it. They just want to sit in their story and they're afraid for whatever reason. It doesn't matter. And if you start to ask them things and you start to get a sense that, well, there's not a heck of a whole lot of places I can go with this person. But when you sit there in front of them and you become the energy of the question you're asking. So let's say the question that might get the best result, you're getting awareness to ask them is, what's really going on here? I'm just using that as an example, but you don't ask it out loud. You sit there, you're listening, you expand your space, expand your energetic frequency, you relax, push all of your barriers down, push all the barriers down, the barriers in the room, the barriers everywhere, just really push all those walls down and start to become that question. What is it to become that question for the person? What are you aware of? What's going to work for you and what's really going on here? You start to project that energetically into this space. If the person would like to pick up on it, they will. If they don't, they won't. And that's their choice. It has to be their choice. It's kind of tricky, especially if you're a facilitator and you have a ton of awareness and you know what the person is choosing, if they chose something differently, then their lives would be a lot better. But it's not for us to come out and necessarily say that. Our job, basically, as facilitators, is to try to get them to get a sense of it themselves. So what better way to do that than energetically become the living question? It takes a little bit of practice, but basically that's how we're doing it. We're sort of projecting that energy, but you're getting a sense of, this is a question, what would it be like to be that question in my body? I hope that helps, Dave. It's hard to articulate energetic stuff. I hope that's helpful.
The,
Yeah. That was amazing. Thank you.
the one thing before you go get into that, Dave, I just want to say one thing here, just for people who are going to be listening to this later in the podcast, is don't think for a second that this is just for these questions are just for facilitating and for healing and spiritual work. This, you could bring questions into your business. You can bring questions into your boardroom. You can bring questions into all kinds of areas of your life. And it's not just about doing your own personal healing. It's also a way to make other people open their eyes on things by asking the right questions. Sorry, Dave, I just wanted to interject that for a second. Go ahead.
Oh no, that's very important. Thank you. So something that, and Melinda, that was fantastic, and I just it's a real difficult thing to try to explain. So that's why I was really interested, because you usually say that you've got, like, that's my 2 cents, and you come out with $6 and change of wonderfulness. So it's so good. So thank you for that. Um, One thing, when it comes to questions, so here's something in psychology, and this is something that I have to talk to every one of my coaching clients about, I should say, is in psychology, we have what's called positive intent. Positive intent states that it's simply, very simply, just that any action is getting us something. So, for example, if okay, so I'm going to just kind of blow this up faster. How about when somebody comes to me and they are having headaches, and we need to uncover where that is, and they've done a lot of different things to try to get rid of headaches, but this is a kind of like a chronic thing. So my first question to the client is, how is it serving you? It is, I promise you that it's serving you to have headaches some way, somehow. Our goal is to figure that out, and then we get to address what it is that we're going to do with it. So if we start looking at using that question and at everything and every behavior that we're seeing in and around us, and especially our own behavior, what is it gaining us? So a fasting, most people would say, well, why would you ever want to have a headache? It's not getting me anything except a whole lot of freaking pain and irritation and frustration. When we keep diving deeper into that question, what is it gaining us? At some point, and this actually, and why I'm using that example, because this is actually how I learned it, learned the whole process myself, was because an energy healer, I had headaches forever. And she actually, I remember sitting there on the table, she did some energy work and everything else. And she said, so are you ready to get rid of this thing? And I'm like, yeah, why do you think I'm here, lady? And she says, well, how is it serving you? And of course, I did the whole, okay, did you hit the bottle before we started today? What are you doing, lady? Like, how? That's just wrong. Why would I want headaches? But as we began talking about it, I came to the realization that it was giving me validation, because people were taking, my family and friends were giving me added attention and added grace, to not have to do anything that I didn't want to do when I had headaches. They would leave me alone, and that's really what I wanted, was to have time, because one, I was crazy busy job at working in an emergency room and all that kind of stuff. So it really hit me when I went, oh my God, okay, there's different ways to be able to do that. I can actually take a breath and say, I need a minute, instead of needing to have this headache that takes me out of the game for the day. So if we start looking at from that perspective, that positive intent, there is something that we're gaining from it. If we can get to that place, or why are other people in our lives that we're witnessing do or have behavior, if we're looking at what is that thing that is gaining them, and those are on, it's on a subconscious level. They're not consciously saying that, I'm going to create a headache so I don't have to go to work today. It's more on that subconscious level. So if we can get into that space and start asking some of those questions for ourselves and the people around us, we get to come in with so much more grace for them, at what they might be struggling through, or what they might actually be going through and happening in their reality.
Awesome. Thank you. Wow. There's so much great stuff here. Patricia, thank you for joining us. So Patricia Maddalena, another one of our amazing IAUSM mentors and part of the dream team. So today we've just really been discussing the power of questions, why questions are not powerful at all, and in fact take us down a rabbit hole, how it's important to open your possibilities from a place of neutrality, from a place of not being attached to an outcome, and how important that is to the question. And I'd love to hear a little bit more from you too, Patricia.
Hi everybody, thanks for having me here. I came in on the sentence, energetically become the living question, from Melinda, and that sent thrill bumps right through me, because that in essence is such a beautiful way to live, energetically in the question. And that, to me, when I feel that in my body, brings me a sense of being present in the moment, in the now, not worried about what could happen in the future, or going through things that have happened in the past, but being present in the moment. When I say that term, energetically becoming the living question, I loved that. And the other thing, with Dr. Dave, how is that serving you? That is, digging down from the behavior that we want to change, digging down and finding the gift, finding the driving force is key. And then the next question that I love to ask is, Dr. Dave, what needs to happen for you to have that alone time and more attention from your family without having to have the headaches? That's the next question that would roll off my tongue. What needs to happen for you to feel? So when we're talking, again, you know, we've been talking about being like the therapist in a session, but in just our own personal lives, if we ask ourselves, how is this serving me right now? How is this behavior serving me right now? How is me attracting the same kind of person into my life, the same kind of situation into my life, which could seem negative? How is that serving me? And when you dig into yourself and find that gold, the next question is, well, what needs to happen for me to have that, but not have to sabotage my life, or not have to go through the rigmarole of yet another partner that brings me X, Y, or Z, or another job that brings me X, Y, or Z. So what needs to happen for me to have that? And then what could happen? So then once you've got that, then you're rolling it out a little bit more. When I have that alone time and that extra attention from my family, then what can happen? And then I can feel filled up and more energized, and I can give my best self. So we're kind of moving yourself or the client forward again, future pacing, when you're more likely then to take, make that swap in behavior, and more likely to take on that new behavior, because you're kind of rolling out and seeing what it's going to give you. You know, it's not going to give you a load of headaches and more pain. It's actually going to energize you and fill you up. So being the embodiment, the energetically becoming the living question is absolutely brilliant. One of the other questions, I love being in the question, and not having to answer it all, being in that space that we don't have to know the answers to every question that we have, is really rather freeing and really rather liberating, kind of handing it over to something larger than ourselves, to the magic of the universe. So one of my favorite questions is, how does it get better than this? And I ask that when life is really, really giving me the curveballs, or I ask it when it is really going very well. How does it get better than this? It's a really beautiful question to have up your sleeve, because the momentum starts growing and building, and you start seeing the better solutions, the right people, the right opportunities in your life. The magic starts to happen.
Amazing, amazing. And now I'm going to add, I love that you just double dutched your way right in there, Patricia. Like, I know you came in a little bit later, but you were able to come in with some amazing stuff. I say double dutched because, you got to jump in with those two ropes and just sort of run right into the swing of things, which you just did effortlessly there, which was amazing and with some great insight. The next part of this is also, and how I like to use the questions too, is what have I committed myself to? And I'm not talking about obligations I've made to the outside world. I'm talking about commitments that I've made to myself that have also, people have called these beliefs, but I think we've moved beyond beliefs in this lifetime, and it's really about commitments that we've made. So, what commitments have I made to myself that is limiting me from moving into this space of being open to all the possibilities, and just sort of allowing yourself to sit with that. Because I think when you open yourself to the awareness of what commitments have I made to myself that are not serving me, especially in this situation, maybe headaches, we can go into that again. What commitments have I made to myself? You will start to almost be a little, sometimes I get shocked by the message, the solution, the commitment that, that moment or the next day show up for me that says, this is the commitment that I'm making. And it becomes very aware, like it becomes very visible because I've asked the question. And I'm like, oh my God, that's the commitment I've made to myself? Oh, hell no. I need to change that shit like right now. So, we don't understand the commitments that we make to ourselves. And if we go back to that question at the very beginning that I asked, when people say, why don't I ever have enough money? What we don't realize is that we've committed ourselves to not having enough money by asking the question, why do I never have enough? Right? Why am I never enough? So there's that question that you asked that took you down the rabbit hole that created a commitment in you that now if you were to say that commitment as a statement, you would say, I, Bob, I'm committed to never having enough money. And that will almost make you feel serious resistance within yourself because it's not a pleasant commitment. And immediately you want to, what commitment should I be making to myself? How can I change this commitment and reset it? What should I be saying instead? Right? So there's lots of ways that you could be asking these kinds of questions. So, it's also about what commitments have you made to yourself, right? And changing those commitments. I am a firm believer that there's a lot of people out there, a lot of energy workers and healers and coaches and who use the language of limiting belief. And I feel that yes, that was once a way to work with things, but I feel that again, we have evolved. And instead of continually going backwards and trying to search through some mess of beliefs to find the limiting belief, it's about going, okay, what have I committed myself to regarding this particular subject? What commitments have I made to myself? And really opening up your awareness and saying, okay, well, that commitment is really not working for me anymore. Maybe it did at one time, forgive yourself for the commitments that you've made to yourself. But I think it's now not so much about changing limiting beliefs, which is a powerful process, but you got to find them, is more about how do I change the commitments that I've made to myself? And just looking at that particular subject. So if I go back to IAUSM and, what commitments have I made to myself? One was, well, I need approval. I'm committed to needing approval. And so I didn't realize that what I was doing when I was bending over backwards for everybody to make them happy, this is something this is a belief that I've had since I was a child, right? Always looking for approval from my parents, right? And I found that that's still going on at 56 years of age. Am I always looking to make my mom happy? And I've stopped doing that, right? But I started bringing it into my business. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm still doing it. Like, I'm still doing it. I want everybody to be happy and I'll martyr myself to do it, right? So, I need to change that commitment. And this is how I say, it's not just about in your personal life, it's also in your business world too. If you don't find yourself advancing or moving or changing the way that you want to in your work, what commitments have you made to yourself? And this is another way, and I'm open to all the possibilities of the way that this could be better for me. And how is that going to happen? And how are things going to change for me? And what ways can that happen? And how can today be better than yesterday? And really being open to all those different ideas from a place of neutrality, which is the key to making the question work, right? So that's I'm going to say Melinda's line. That's my 2 cents on that. I'd love to hear from you, Melinda.
Holy smokes, I love that. And no, you can't use my line. Just kidding. Yeah, I love what you just said. Oh my goodness, the commitments. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, commitments are poopy. I'm not loving commitments at all. We've made commitments, energetic commitments we don't even realize we've made. We make cognitive commitments. We make commitments like you just said. And I'd rather throw all the commitments out the door except for the one I am now choosing to be committed to my life, which means I'm going to shut all those back doors, my escape routes. Like, oh, if this doesn't work, I'm going to dive out and do that. Like always having a plan B or a plan C to escape out of isn't really committing to your life. And
Melinda, sorry. Can I just stop you for 1 second?
Yeah.
Being committed to my life. I would like you to, I'm going to ask you to change that sentence. So it's, I'm committed to being life.
No, I really like being committed to my life, my living, my money flows, my energy, being committed to the being. That's what I like to, that's my interpretation of being committed to my life, which means that I'm choosing for me, I'm choosing what's working for me, I'm choosing to look at what I'm creating, and I'm choosing to release everywhere that I've decided and committed to these negative commitments, like you just beautifully demonstrated and illustrated. That's the way that I'm using this. I'm sorry if it wasn't clear.
Oh, of course it's clear. No, no, no.
Oh,
I am, I'm moving again, me moving into a space of, we're not living our lives, we are life. We're not
right.
performers on a stage, we are stage. We are the stage. So, we're not dancers, we're the dance, right? So I think that we're so committed to our life that we don't understand that we actually are life.
Right. So with regard to commitment, what I really love is that looking at that question of, even let's say you're driving in your car and you're having a day, you're having a moment, you're really upset or you're frustrated about something. That's a wonderful question you can ask. What am I committed to right now in this moment? Or what am I choosing right now? And you can start to look at the commitment that you might have that triggers you into frustration and irritation in that specific moment. So you can start to look at major commitments, or you can start to look at even the finer commitments that just start to create these looping patterns and these looping thoughts that keep you on this Mobius strip, so to speak, of not being able to get off of this loop. So when you're observing your commitments by asking the questions, that's when you start to be able to break free and pull some of these things off, so you can be more of you and have a lot more freedom and a lot more ease. And I love what you said about the business. Absolutely. Like, asking questions in business is also excellent in every area of your life, in relationships, in business, with everything. When you start to function from a space of question with a business, you start to look at your business, for example, not necessarily as a brick and mortar thing, as something that you can control, as something that you are, like a static thing. You're looking at your business as its own creation, its own life form, its own beingness. And when you start asking and questions of your business, for example, in a way like, okay, what requires my attention right now? Business, how would you like to get created? What's going to work for my business? Instead of coming to conclusions of how your business is going to be successful based on X, Y, and Z, if you sat down and had a coffee with your business every morning, for example, and started asking questions, just take a moment, breathe, settle into your space, connect to whatever the energy of your business is, whatever the feeling that your business gives you, whatever you aspire it or you hope for it, just sitting there with it and start asking, okay, business, what's going to work? What is going to contribute to you? What is going to contribute to me? Who can we call today? What's going to create something greater for us? What would you like to be in the world? What would like to get created through you? Those are generative, open-ended questions that you can ask with your business. And this way you're in communion with your business. You're not trying to force it to be something or to make it successful, and you're not placing a bunch of judgments and conclusions and all kinds of things or false commitments onto this business. You're being in the flow, you're being in that open-ended space, and you're giving a chance for that energy that's your business to give you some feedback. I hope that helps.
Absolutely, absolutely. Uh, Dr. Dave.
It shouldn't surprise me um, anymore, but it always does. How amazing the folks that we get to work with. I love that everybody that's come on and it's just full on, full power, gorgeous beautifulness that they are. You guys rock. This is where the cool kids are. So, um, I was thinking about when Melinda's talking about. I loved how she was standing firm in that statement that she has about her life, and I'm committed to that. Those are so powerful. It's almost like you're parting the sea, if you will, of everything else falls away that isn't part of that one statement, and that's your true light. And Aisha, when you were talking about what am I committed to? Holy cow. I was going down the list and I was typing in my notes of starting to answer some of those questions of what is it that I actually registered that I'm committed to. And then I wanted to go, of course, to the next step of, is that true for me? Is that a truth? What is it that I'm not opening to because of these commitments? And that was so much fun. Um, one of the things that really helps, and this is one of my favorite mindsets, and it's a quote from Carolyn Mace, of giving up the um, giving up needing to know why things happen as they do. So I don't need to figure that part out. I just want to be in it and move forward with it. So if I don't get stuck in the how it all happened or why it's all happening, I get to be in it and live streaming kind of mindset. And that when we give up all that other stuff, because so many times we're stuck in all of that analysis, or we think that it's analysis that needs to happen to figure out why it is where we're at, when okay, that's probably helpful in some instance, but not spending so much time on that and much more on where is it that I want to go. So then I'm now changing the script of I'm going to be committed to of being this and then continuing that process. And so that's what I was just doing, is swapping out some of those things I would put on one side of the page of I'm committed to being this, and then going back again is how can this be better? So thank you for that. And then so it's just this wonderful like cascading waterfall that's like rippling in this beautiful river that's just life. You guys are so good. I love it. So thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Dave. That's so great. Patricia.
Hi, I couldn't get my thing to open. my phone closed. Sorry, I'm here.
Uh,
Hi, everybody. Yeah. Um. So like when I was listening to everyone speaking there, I realised that I was listening, and that is the next stage of living in the question. Is, after asking the question, practicing the art of listening is fundamental to seeing the answers that pop up. Asking the question and then being in that space for the right person, the right situation, the right opportunity to rock up in your life with the answer is key. So having a commitment that's, for me anyway, I have that commitment. It always happens. The magic happens. It always does. I put the question out, how does it get better than this? And there you go. The right person, the right situation rocks up, whether that's to do with business, to do with my personal life, to do with to do with anything. There is a space after asking the question, after kind of putting it out there in our inner universe, in our outer universe, there is an opportunity then to be the listener. And it reminds me of a quote that I heard, which was about living in the question. And then perhaps someday, far in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way into the answer. And I quite like that quote because it allows for something that's outside of our predetermined old belief structures or programs or commitments that we have, that have been created through our life journeys, inherited down from our parents and our families and schools and teachers and religion, that maybe don't serve us, who we are in this day and age. It goes beyond the belief, it's beyond belief, it goes beyond that into the realm of possibility. And living in that space of possibility requires you to give it up to something bigger than yourself, to ask the question and not try and answer it with your limited commitments that you may have, and then open up and use that listening, being able to listen and see, open up and see those answers as and when they come into your life.
Beautiful. Well said. So if we were going to wrap this up, and I'd like everyone to sort of give their closing strategy or tip or additional comment. So we're looking at asking questions, open-ended questions about our lives, about different situations, about different circumstances, even about our illnesses that we might be experiencing, coming at it from a place of neutrality, and then following that up with active listening and awareness. So, I mean, that's just a whole, just that is just this big bubble of yummy goodness. Like it's just a miracle maker. Like I think we've just created the miracle maker toolkit, right? So it's astounding. It's astounding. Melinda, I'd love to hear from you as we wrap this up.
Okay, so how about asking a few cool questions like, what is available to me today that I have never chosen, that if I chose it would totally create a generative, expansive, miraculous life? Imagine, write that one down. That's a good one to be asking every day. I would start asking generative questions every morning when you wake up. What miracle walking am I that I haven't been acknowledging that I can now acknowledge? What is possible with this day? How much joy can I have today? Body, are you willing to have fun? Body, let's have fun. How much joy can we have today? Who the heck wakes up in the morning with questions like that? Not a lot of people, just saying. So what if we started doing that and started to function from first thing when you wake up, there's a question. Last thing you do before you go to sleep, there's a question before sleep. Universe, show me what's possible to show me wonderful, magical possibilities as I sleep and I dream. What are the infinite possibilities to have a wonderful, rest-filled sleep? Thank you, body, for this day. What's possible for me to have more appreciation, more joy, more ease with my body? You could go to sleep with those questions. Can you imagine how much things would change if we're just willing to do that maybe just twice a day, morning and evening? I would
Absolutely.
ask people to maybe give that a shot.
That's a great one. Those are great. Like I've noticed, since I've started in the mornings, just saying, I'm open to all the possibilities today, everything that the universe has to offer me, in the best ways possible. And just even saying that has, opened up, immense possibilities for me. And even things that I would not have thought to step back into or to step into that I haven't stepped into before wouldn't have shown up. Without those questions, I don't believe they would have, or being open to those possibilities. Dave.
Oh, that's so good. So much good. And Melinda, that's exactly what I was thinking. Um, I I had as a kid, I had this wonderful example of my grandparents. They're very religious, but they had morning and evening devotionals. So it was something that they would open up to scripture for the beginning of their day and the end of their day. Now fast forward to 2022, and I do that with angel cards. Um, but it's on an app on my phone. So when I wake up, the first thing I do is I'm like, okay, universe, what you got for me today? And I pull a card. And that's how I begin, knowing that I'm starting on the same page as the universe and my creator. And I do the same, just like Melinda talked about, at night when I get into bed. Literally before I turn off the phone, that's what I do is I go to my app and pick the card deck that I want, the app, and ask, all right, what are we going to process, or what is it that you want me to sleep on? And I pull that card, and that's how I end my day. So I invite everybody to do that in whatever way that you do that within your life, whether it's religious, whether it's that spiritual way, or just asking and feeling the answer. That's all I got. Thank you guys all so much for shining your light. I love you all.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. Thank you. And Patricia, any closing words?
Yeah, all of this is, for me, it's about gaining conscious control over seemingly unconscious behavior. And that in itself is utterly empowering. I'm going to be bringing more of both of those things that Melinda and Dr. Dave just said into my life. But the one question, I've said it before and I'll say it again, is simply, how does it get better than this? It helps when life's crap. It helps when life's awesome. How does it get better than this? And that's my commitment. How does it get better than this?
That's a great commitment, and I'm going to throw that out to IAUSM and all of our amazing mentors. And how does it get better than this? These conversations, this growth, this just sharing of wisdom and knowledge and love and just the want, the desire to share, and from a place of love. And how does it get better than that? How does it get better than that? And I'd love to see that, because wow. So thank you all for sharing your time this morning, and I look forward to sharing this particular discussion with the world. And have a fabulous day, guys.